Morning everyone. We're going to tackle our lesson for first quarter, week 7, the glycolysis. All heterotrophic organisms, including men, depend directly on plants and other photosynthetic organisms for food. Organisms need food as the main source of energy. All organisms need energy to perform essential life processes. In this new lesson, you will learn the structure of the cell where energy stored in food is produced. You will also understand the first stage of cellular respiration, the glycolysis. Mitochondria are membrane-enclosed organelles distributed through the cytoplasm of most eukaryotic cells. Their main function is the conversion of the potential energy of food molecules into ATP. Cellular respiration is a process by which organisms combine oxygen and glucose to produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and a high-energy molecule needed by the cells. Glucose inside the cell is broken down to release the stored energy. In the process, carbon dioxide and water are the waste products. Here is the chemical reaction of the process. Many of the reactions involved in cellular respiration happen in the mitochondria. Mitochondria are known as the powerhouses of the cell. They are shaped perfectly to maximize their productivity. They are made of two membranes. The outer membrane covers the organelle and contains it like a skin. The inner membrane folds over many times and creates layered structures called cristae. The fluid contained in the mitochondria is called the matrix. Glycolysis is the first step in the breakdown of glucose to produce the energy ATP. It is an anaerobic process because oxygen is not used in the process. It occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell. In glycolysis, the 6-carbon sugar glucose is broken down into molecules of a 3-carbon molecule called pyruvate. This change is accompanied by a net gain of 2 ATP molecules and 2 NADH molecules. Table 1. Summary of raw materials and products of glycolysis. The raw material is glucose and the products 2 pyruvate, 2 ATP, and 2 NADH. For Lesson 2, the Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle was discovered by Sir Hans Krebs. It is also known as the citric acid cycle, which refers to the first molecule formed during the cycle, the citrate. The Krebs cycle occurs in the mitochondrial matrix and generates a pool of chemical energy, ATP, NADH, and FADH2 from the oxidation of pyruvate, the end product of glycolysis. The overall purpose of Krebs cycle is to continue the oxidation of glucose and produce electron carriers, NADH and FADH2. NADH and FADH to carry the electrons and continue on to the third step of cellular respiration. Pyruvate is transported into the mitochondria and loses carbon dioxide to form acetyl-CoA or CoA, a 2-carbon molecule. When acetyl-CoA is oxidized to carbon dioxide in the Krebs cycle, chemical energy is released and captured in the form of NADH, FADH2, and ATP. This table, summary of raw materials and products of Krebs cycles. The raw materials, 2 pyruvate, 2 acetyl-CoA, and the products 2 ATP, 6 NADH, 2 FADH2, carbon dioxide byproduct. Lesson 3. The Electron Transport Tree Chain. The electron transport chain, or ATC, is a process in which the NADH and FADH2 produced during glycolysis and Krebs cycles are oxidized, thus releasing energy in the form of ATP. The final step of aerobic respiration is the electron transport chain, which is located on the inner mitochondrial membrane. The inner membrane is arranged into folds, cristae, which increases the surface area available for the transport chain. The electron transport chain allows the release of the large amount of chemical energy stored in NADH and FADH2. The energy release is captured in the form of ATP. This process is called oxidative phosphorylation. Oxygen acts as a final acceptor of the electrons from the chain. It also maintains the electrochemical gradient by binding to H+ ions or H+ ions to form water. The electron transport chain consists of a series of molecules, mostly proteins, embedded in the inner mitochondrial membrane. This step of cellular respiration produces the greatest number of ATP. Table 3. Summary of raw materials and products for electron transport chain. The raw materials: oxygen, 10 NADH, 2 FADH2. The products: 3, 4 ATP, and water. Conversion: 1 NADH equals 3 ATP and 1 FADH2 equals 2 ATP. For 1 molecule of glucose, the preceding pathways produce: glycolysis, 2 NADH times 3 equals 6 ATP plus 6 ATP for transition reaction, 2 NADH times 3. Krebs cycle, 6 NADH times 3 equals 18 ATP, 2 FADH2 times 2 equals 4 ATP. Number of ATP produced in ETC equal over 34 ATP. Number of ATP produced in glycolysis equals 2 ATP. Number of ATP produced in Krebs cycle equals 2 ATP. 6 ATP plus 6 ATP plus 18 ATP plus 4 ATP equals 34 ATP. Plus 2 ATP plus 2 ATP equals 38 ATP. For the entire process of cellular respiration, the total number of ATP produced is 38 ATP. Thank you for listening.